All right, let's move to this story now. Mine workers who contracted chronic or life-threatening lung diseases during the course of their work are going to be compensated after lengthy litigation. The government has set aside a fund of 10 billion rand. The Department of Health is advising affected workers or their families on how to come forward. And I'm joined now by Deputy Health Minister Dr Sibongiseni Dhlomo. Dr Dhlomo, thank you so much for your time. I wonder if you could start by giving us a little bit of background on how this fund came about, because we've looked at years of litigation and what illnesses exactly will be compensated.
Sally, this is not only affecting those who caught illnesses, silicosis, asbestosis, TB. As you probably might know, a lot of TB that you'll find in the country was also out of the silica dust that was picked up in the mines and then it spread right out with the ex-mine workers. But that's just 1 billion of the 10 billion that is there to compensate those. There's another 4.5 billion out of the 10 billion that is going to be a compensation of the class action settlement that certain companies agreed to settle, basically a big trust called Shiamiso Trust, for the misdemeanors, things that were not picked up. People were just brought in there, you fall sick, they say go home, please, we get another batch of people. So there was a lot of programs of apartheid during the black workers and white workers were treated very differently. Well, this is actually to redress that. Another 4 billion, ma'am, is to deal with their pensions. I mean, quite a lot of them worked in there. They probably never properly written down to say, okay, now you are discharged, you're leaving, come over to this desk, come over to this window for your pension. And all those monies are sitting there. So it's not only to compensate for those who are ill, but generally all what is due to the former mine workers, right through all mining companies and all, whether coal, diamond, gold, all those mines. And it's about 150,000 of those to be paid in the Eastern Cape, another 200,000 in Lesotho, Mozambique 150,000, and right through it comes to about 1 million of workers right through SADC. So we just happen to be in the northern of KwaZulu-Natal now, but we have to really push and get going quickly because some of these people are 60 years and above. Some of them have passed on, and we still have to compensate probably to their dependents. So it is a whole host of pensions, settlements, and through the court, and the 1 billion that is in the compensation for occupational disease in the Department of Health. And it is a tripartite program: Department of Health, Department of Labor and Employment, Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. We are all together having certain things to do with this fund.
And of course, we know that mine workers came from across the Southern African region to work in South African mines. So you're saying that in total, you estimate it's about 1 million workers, former workers, who are due some form of compensation, either through pensions that they didn't receive fairly or through as you explained, the health issues that they incurred due to the work that they did. How far back are we going, and how many of these people have you traced so far, or are you simply relying on them to come forward?
We rely on you, Sally, helping us through this method, because you probably won't know. After I've just had an interview with you, a lot of them will do calls and say, how do we get there? But just to start with, in various provinces and in other countries, there are sort of former mine workers groupings where they are together asking, where do we go? And we are in contact with most of them. And the significant payment has been in the Eastern Cape and in the Lesotho. Probably because there's a bulk, but whatever we have paid there is significantly very small compared to the outstanding payments that are due. We request, because if there's a deceased member, the family must get together and agree that the money will be going to be given to Sally, because Sally is the last born in this family and probably not the firstborn or whatever. So they would have to quickly deal with those disputes, because as we'll get back to Zululand next week, is to meet families. And this week, we're really grateful with the support that we have received from Amakosis in Duna, who are like going ahead and speaking to all our people and saying, come next week, all these departments are back here. Please bring ID, death certificate, any card that you used when you're in the mine, and that is going to be evidence. We are also gathering data from TEBA, which was a recruiting agency for the mining, and all those, therefore, your name must appear there. If it doesn't appear, we go and look for your names elsewhere, confirmation, and therefore you'll be examined. If you are diseased, and check what is the severity, and the doctors, the experts will be there to measure your severity. On the basis of that, then the banks will be there too. We have requested all banks to come in and register so that the monies does not go from the mining trust to Dhlomo and to the person. It goes directly from the trust to the people who are dependents.
So quickly on the money, it's 10 billion rand. My understanding is that the mine companies have contributed half. Where's the rest of the money coming from?
Coming from the pensions, Sally. Pensions, they were contributing to the pensions. Some of the pensions went into the Employment and Labour Department, and therefore that money is kept there to be paid there. There's other money was actually monies that come in, like we have to pay $1 billion as a Department of Health because we have to compensate the workers because there were some monies contributed by the mining industry to, in the event there is an injury, in the event there is an infection or a problem on the chest and lungs, this is a money levy that is being collected. There's money going to the Employment and Labour for those processes of injuries. All that is being brought in when it comes to 10 billion. So there is some money from the
Okay, so there's pensions and et cetera, et cetera. But I just want to know, what are the time periods that you're looking at? I mean, is there a cut-off date? Is there a specific start date? And what are those dates?
Everyone who has been in the employment is from early 70s. All those, if they still have the records, it will be very difficult for some of people to have records. The timeline for payments, for as long as some of the trusts are to be going on for another 10 years more, and there are those Kalahadi, especially on the asbestos, because asbestos was stopped some years back, and those ones are actually finishing off in the next year or two. But there is a possibility if people come in quickly and we know there's still a back. All what is important is that we must reach many of the people and start making a payment. Right now, we're not claiming the data. People inside there who were minors, and then I was told by some of the experts they could actually check the data. It's a computerized matter. Once they pick it up on the computer, the data is there, confirms, and it is actually registered. The money should be there the next day or the next week, so there shouldn't be any delays once everything has been confirmed. Especially on the pensions, maybe a bit of a delay for the medical experts.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. If you've got unclaimed pension benefits, once you've been traced and it's been verified who you are, that should be a fairly quick process. People who got sick, though, that, as you say, is going to be slightly more complicated. Is it possible to say what the average is you're expecting people to get paid? And then also, if you could tell us what someone who thinks they might qualify should do next.
Right. It depends, Sally, or
okay, I'm battling to hear you. Just start that answer. Yes.
Also,
we've got a dodgy line. Sorry, Dr. Dhlomo. Try again. All right. Unfortunately, we've lost the Deputy Health Minister, Dr Sibongiseni Dhlomo, but he's explaining to us that 10 billion rand fund, this is a compensation fund. It's the result of unclaimed pensions, but it's also 5 billion put in by the mining industry. And this is to compensate for some of the injustices that occurred, particularly during the apartheid years, but also for the conditions that many miners worked in. And these are miners from all across the region who came to work in our mines here in South Africa. So it's miners who got TB, silicosis, mesothelioma, all these horrific diseases from silica dust, that sort of thing. They can go forward and claim